We are live. We are live, and I'm coming at you with five. Welcome again to another edition of Gavin Richard Presents here on my channel, GBoo2786. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you all are doing blessed and safe. We are also on my self-entitled channel, Gavin Richard. So I ask you to subscribe there as well, so we can upload even more live streams and YouTube videos. Of course, we have a friend on the show. He is no stranger to this channel. He has appeared multiple times. Please welcome the author of The Man Crisis as well as the John Haynes series, Brother Shawn James. How you doing, Shawn?
I'm fine. How are you?
We're doing great, my man. Doing great, doing great. So Shawn, aside from The Man Crisis and the John Haynes series, he has some other books as well, and I always allow him a chance to plug in. So Shawn, why don't you show everybody tell everyone what you're working on and what you have available?
Well, what I'm working on right now for the fall is the book E-Steam Blast from the Past, which is a follow-up to E-Steam The Sands of Time, and that book is available on Kindle for pre-order right now, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the chat if I can get to it. All right. Okay, one moment. I'm just trying to find it, that's all.
That's no problem, man. Take your time. We're just thankful to have you on and come here, man, because we value your opinion. At least I do. It's always good to have somebody on that, like-minded individuals, especially Black individuals that want to do something.
Right. All right. I'm having some technical issues, so I'll get back to it in a minute. But that book is available for pre-order on Amazon. And I have the upcoming Eternal Night, which is coming out this Halloween, and that book is available for pre-order as well on Kindle, so you can get that book. I can leave a link to that one in the chat. So, 1 second.
All right. We have a banner right here too for John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose.
Okay. So that book is available, and those are the two books that are going to be available for the fall. And I have other projects I'm working on. The new ISIS book I'm working on, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. That's 2021. John Haynes, Taking Care of Business, is 2021. And right now I'm working on E-Steam Cancel Vacation, which is about a commentary on the woke culture and social justice warriors, which I'm working on right now. And that's 2021's catalog. So those are the three for the 2021 catalog, but that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm pondering getting ready to do another Indiegogo because in E-Steam Blast from the Past, I have a comic in there from the No Good Deed comic strip. So
Shawn,
this is the first comic I've ever done. So that's what in E-Steam Blast from the Past. So that's what I'm also working on. I'm also working with Chris L. Brown on Omega Black, and that Indiegogo is supposed to be scheduled, I think, to launch tomorrow. And I may do a show on that one, but if you sign up for that Indiegogo right now, he's looking for 300 people to sign up for it. And if you sign up for it, you'll get free shipping. So today's the last day to get free shipping on Omega Black, and I put that in the chat as a link. So it's the last day to get it, and I think it's going to launch tomorrow. So I'm editing that project, and that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay, cool. That's what's up, man. So my man stays busy, and that's a good thing. Shawn, a lot has been going on, man. Obviously, I wanted to talk with you. We always call this random topics, but of course, in the last couple of weeks, it always seems like we got something negative going on. Of course, we've had, the deaths of a couple of civil rights leaders. John Lewis, who was a congressman from Atlanta, who passed away about 2 Fridays ago. Not this Friday, but the Friday after last. As well as losing C.T. Vivian as well. And of course, the following week, Charles Evers, brother of Medgar Evers, who was involved in the civil rights movement, passed away at the age of 97. So we have 97, 95, and 80 years old. And of course, John Lewis was battling pancreatic cancer. And then today, we found out that Herman Cain died as well, supposedly from complications of COVID-19. Although I don't think an official cause of death had been released as of yet. But I do want to get your thoughts on all of that going on. And then today was John Lewis's funeral, and just from you and I talking, I don't think you paid any attention to the funeral or watched it.
Well, I wasn't paying any attention to it because it wasn't something I was really concerned about. To me, John Lewis's passing really, it's sad that this civil rights leader wound up passing, but when I look at his legacy, it really didn't really do any much for Black people. So I figure like
Right.
this: if I'm not going to say anything nice about the guy, I'd rather just not say anything at all about him, because when I look at what he did for Black people, it's not anything at all. So he didn't do anything for Black folks, so I'm not going to say anything, and I don't want to say anything offensive about the man. I want to pay respect to the family and the other people in the community, so I'm just going to stay silent about it and just leave it alone.
Right. Okay. Well, that's understandable. But there were some things that, I kind of feel the same way in the sense that when someone dies, I try to be respectful to them because, I don't like to disparage the dead. Having said all of that, history is history. And John, and I'm just speaking for me, John Lewis's history, and I'm trying to be respectful. Yes, he's a historical figure in terms of being involved with the civil rights movement in the 1960s, as well as being involved in voter rights campaigns. I give him, and being on the Edmunds Pettus Bridge, but and taking a beating. Of course, he wasn't the only one that was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but that seemed to be his claim to fame, and that's really all. If you noticed in his speeches, that's what he talked about all the time. I spilled blood on that bridge in Selma, and Professor Black Truth, the Black Authority, and Tariq Nasheed have gone in depth about it. But having said all of that, I personally didn't care for him as a politician in terms of things because he was anti-Black Power. He did not support the Black Power movement in the 1960s, and even as a congressman in Atlanta, his record is not that great necessarily, in terms of things. But I did watch parts of the funeral, and there were excerpts that I wanted to play for you because there were things that were very interesting. And John Lewis was eulogized today by several people, but including three former presidents: George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. And I want to play this for you, Shawn, because I do, at least if I could get your take on this, because this was brought to my attention a little earlier. Let me know if anybody can hear this, but uh, this is from Tariq Nasheed's, this is from his Twitter page. And Bill Clinton made some comments about the late Stokely Carmichael that I think was hella disrespectful and interesting. Now, let me know if you all can hear it. Let me know, Shawn, if you can hear it. I'm playing it right now.
All right. Can't really hear what he's saying.
So you can't hear what he's saying? Okay. Hold on. Let me do this. All right, let me do this. I'm gonna share it on. I'm gonna share it on here
All
because
right.
it may be a little bit better, and it's probably a little easier for me. But well, let me remove this. All right, hold on a second. Share audio. All right, so here it is right here. So you should be able to hear it this time when I play it. But This is Bill Clinton.
And I say there were 2 or 3 years there where the movement went a little bit too far towards Stokely, but in the end, John Lewis prevailed. And I say there were 2 or 3 years there where the movement went a little bit too far towards Stokely, but in the end, John Lewis prevailed.
Okay. And Tariq tweeted this. He said at John Lewis' funeral, this degenerate Bill Clinton disrespected a real civil rights leader, Stokely Carmichael, saying the movement went a little bit too far towards Stokely, but in the end, John Lewis prevailed, meaning it was too much about Black empowerment at first. Shawn, if I could get your thoughts on hearing this, what is your take on it?
Well, that's just Bill Clinton being Bill Clinton, and the whole funeral was basically just the people in Washington patting themselves on the back. So I really don't get too upset about what they're saying over there. I mean, we all know that the civil rights movement made a wrong turn when it went with John Lewis and the baby boomer generation. And their turn, they weren't really interested in Black empowerment from the get-go. Once they were really about white acceptance and white access. And that's where the civil rights movement took a wrong turn. And we saw how that practically destroyed the Black community, the Black economy, and the Black family. So they took this low-key diss at Stokely Carmichael and the Black Panthers, but the Black Panthers wanted to take the Black community in a direction where we would be taking care of ourselves, having our own community by our own standards, and building our own family structures and our own institutions. But a lot of these guys who were part of the civil rights movement, like John Lewis, they were interested in white acceptance and white access. And that direction was very detrimental to Black people.
Most definitely. I felt, I thought, again, this was a mad, disrespectful tweet, comment by Bill Clinton. But, I had my hesitations watching it. My father, of course, he's sitting up there watching it because when you get older, obviously, all you're going to watch is funerals. I hate to say that, but, someone popular or famous like that, that's something that's on every network today. I believe CBS ran it without commercial interruption. It was also on BET, but of course, it would be on BET because CBS, BET, VH1, MTV are all owned by Viacom. And you and I have talked about that. And speaking of Bill Clinton, he signed that Telecommunications Act of 1996, which virtually disintegrated Black media and threw it, scattered it into the 4 seas and into the winds of the earth. So, yeah, Bill Clinton, I think, but this is the thing, though, too, with Bill Clinton being there. And then if you remember, of course, everybody remembers George Bush with what he did with Katrina.
Yeah.
I remember when Michelle Obama was all hugged up with him I can't remember where it was. It might have been a funeral for someone had passed away. I'm not sure who it was, but I remember that distinctly. And I'm looking at this. This is the first Black first lady that's sitting up there hugging a man who was single-handedly responsible for the deaths of thousands of people here in my hometown. And then when he comes down here for the 10th anniversary, these kids that were would sit up hugged next to him when they were kids, little babies. It's like, do we have historical amnesia?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, what's the purpose of all of that?
Well, that's part of what I call being spellbound. Whenever they see a white person, they see that white validation and that white approval. And it's part of that whole codependent mindset that a lot of Black people have. Whenever they see a white person, they just automatically, it's like a subconscious thing where they just automatically start seeking that attention and approval. And they start thinking that if I get this white person's validation, they'll get some sort of value. And it's something we have to start mentally breaking ourselves out of, because it just shows how deeply ingrained white supremacy is on the black mind.
Yeah, and speaking of white supremacy, Barack Obama also gave a eulogy. His eulogy was 40 minutes, and there were some key things that I took out of it. I don't know if it is in this clip. This is obviously, I didn't want to share a 40-minute clip and dissecting back to back because we would be here all night. But he said some very interesting things. He talked about, and I'll just go over it with you. He lauded both of the presidents that were there, even George W. Bush, with regards to the Voting Rights Act. He talked about how um, President Bush had made it much more stronger, and he singled it out. He spoke. He's also praised uh, Bill Clinton because he made it easier for people to register to vote. But then he didn't say anything about himself. He talked about how the Civil Rights Act was struck down by the Supreme Court, or at least part of it, in 2013 when he was president. Remember, he was in uh, his second term. He just started his second term. And I remember Barack Obama saying very little about that, about how the White House just released a statement talking about, well, we'll make sure everyone will ensure to be the right to vote is ensured for all Americans. We're disappointed, blah, blah, blah. But then the very next day, Barack Obama called the homosexual couple on the steps of the Supreme Court when they struck down DOMA. That's the Defense of Marriage Act.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court, Shawn, and I can tell you this as an attorney, Supreme Court has never been consistent in terms of how they interpret the law. They've been, I think, dreadful in their decisions. And I'm sharing that thought even with some conservatives who think that a lot of Supreme Court decisions have been harmful. This is the same Supreme Court, remember, that not only struck down the Voting Rights Act, but then they've also made other ghastly decisions, like, for instance, we're talking about, as we're going back to the 1800s, Dred Scott case. We're talking about also Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, that was based in New Orleans, and also decisions that they have made recently, not refusing to hear qualified immunity cases. So I do want to play. I've talked a little while, but I do want to play that clip from Barack Obama and just get your thoughts. And we only got two people here, but that's all good. We're good, man. So let's play this clip I have here from Barack Obama. This was like about a 1 minute, 50-second clip. And I'll just hear your thoughts on what he has to say, and we'll go from there. Let's see.
At the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that is a fine tribute. But John wouldn't want us to stop there, just trying to get back to where we already were. Once we pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we should keep marching to make it even better by making sure every American is automatically registered to vote, including former inmates who've earned their second chance. By adding polling places and expanding early voting and making Election Day a national holiday. So if you are somebody who's working in a factory, or you're a single mom who's got to go to her job and doesn't get time off, you can still cast your ballot by guaranteeing that every American citizen has equal representation in our government, including the American citizens who live in Washington, D.C. and in Puerto Rico. They're Americans. By ending some of the partisan gerrymandering so that all voters have the power to choose their politicians, not the other way around. And if all this takes eliminating the filibuster, another Jim Crow relic in order to secure the God-given rights of every American, then that's what we should do.
All right. So that was former President Barack Hussein Obama. Shawn, just your thoughts. I thought it was hella ironic that he was up there talking about that. And, you're wondering, well, wait a minute, what were you doing in your 8 years? That was the point I was making earlier when he talked about the things that the former presidents had done. And he never really pushed any of that.
Yeah. Well, my critical question would be to Barack Obama. What did you do in the last 8 years? Because you had an opportunity to build on what you say was John Lewis's legacy by doing something about George Zimmerman. You had a chance to actually prevent Donald Trump from ever coming to political power had you done something about George Zimmerman, but you chose to do nothing. And here you are talking about how we need to do something about voting when you didn't give anybody an incentive to vote for your party by your 8 years of inaction, ineffectiveness, and a complete unwillingness to help people in the Black community, the same way old baby boomers like John Lewis didn't want to help anybody in the Black community. Both Barack Obama and your John Lewis came from the I got mine, F you mentality towards Blacks. They express contempt towards Blacks, and now they want us to make these glib speeches to try to convince Black people to go out here and vote, but they don't want to bring any sort of tangibles to Black people. Because I listened to your Barack Obama, and he makes a lot of great and flowery speeches that tell people, that get people emotionally stirred up, but he doesn't really present any arguments to convince you why I should actually go out here and vote, or why I should even care, because he's not proposing any tangibles. These are all feel-good words, just like he had feel-good words for those people who were affected by the Dylan Roof mass shootings. He can go out here and go to a church and make a nice speech and make a nice song, but he doesn't follow it up with any sort of action. And because he doesn't follow it up with any sort of action, that's why nobody takes him seriously. And I don't take anything he said there as serious, because he's talking about voting. But what has voting got Black people during the 8 years that he was president? He did absolutely nothing. And he could have stopped a lot of these murders of Black men, this domino effect that transpired in the Black community, had he shut down George Zimmerman. And he possibly could have shut down Trump's quest for the presidency and practically preserved the presidency for his own party. So I look at him and him making these statements in this speech. It's just, he knows how to talk a good game, but he could have delivered more had he not been such a coward and such a beta male during his 8 years in office.
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm just looking, people are, tweeting about Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. Someone tweeted, retweeted, Kaya Solo retweeted a tweet from Windward Maroon. Fuck it, let's get Kwame Ture trending. Most definitely, because Stokely Carmichael was that dude. And I thought again, I thought it was mad disrespectful that Bill Clinton talked to him that way. But I felt, even when I came into watching the funeral, Shawn, I knew that it was going to be a bullshit about getting Black people registered, not only to go out and vote, but we got to vote like our lives depend on it. Because this is, I think they have some propaganda that's going on when they're talking about Black people.
Well, it's the same story they ran with Donald Trump and with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And no one cares anymore because you're not bringing any tangibles to the table for Black people. People are tired of listening to this stuff about we need to do something. It's like, no, if you want to do something, go over to those white women who voted for Trump and go ask them to go change their vote. Unless you got some tangibles, we have no interest in even talking to you.
Many of us, Ed says, many of us born in the early 1970s were baby boomers. When did this, I think he meant to say mentality, among many baby boomers come to a head? My parents, I'm sure, as two hosts, were baby boomers. You want to take that one, or?
Well, I'll take it. But the whole thing of the baby boomers was they came out of the civil rights movement looking for white acceptance, and because they were looking for this white acceptance, they were all about getting for themselves. So, and the baby boomers, they were people who were very selfish, self-centered. They were all about themselves, and this frame of thinking came about because they just wanted to get theirs, and they weren't thinking about building a legacy. They weren't thinking about trying to establish wealth for the next generation. It was all about them getting these jobs and getting in with white people and then getting accepted by white people. And this frame of thinking, it derailed the black community because instead of us looking to have our own businesses, we were looking to go to college and get a job with somebody else. And when you work for somebody else, you're not working for you. And when you work for somebody else, you're working on their terms. And that frame of thinking really messed up a lot of black people, and it messed up the black community because when you're thinking about doing for somebody else, you're not thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your community's needs. It's all about making other people happy. So it was basically this mindset of, I want to be accepted. And we have to understand, you're not looking for acceptance. You're looking to have your own, and you can't have your own if you're on somebody else's at somebody else's table.
Most definitely. And Ed, I think he's new to the channel. I think he's one of your followers, Shawn.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, shout out to you, Ed. Thanks for being here. Ed also posted this. He says, I think the real reason Bill Clinton said that about Kwame Ture because many people believe that he indirectly got MLK killed. No, that is not true. I don't believe that. Let me just tell you why. Listen, Bill Clinton, being that he's a former president, I'm pretty sure, and Barack Obama for that matter, I'm pretty sure they've seen secret files and know who killed who. Kwame Ture was very young. I guess he was in his 20s by the time Dr. King was assassinated. And Kwame Ture, while he even said he disagreed with a lot of Dr. King's tactics, he still respected Dr. King. He even showed up to his speech that he gave at the church, I believe the Ebenezer Baptist Church, which is where they laid John Lewis to rest, where he said, why I'm opposed to the Vietnam War. That was in 1967, April 4th, 1967 to be exact. And that is approximately 1 year from the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in Memphis, Tennessee at the Lorraine Motel. And there are declassified COINTELPRO files and documents where the government or the members of COINTELPRO, like J. Edgar Hoover and so forth, were talking about preventing the rise of the Black Messiah. And they specifically stated that Elijah Muhammad was too old. And they also stated Stokely Carmichael was too young. And they also said we don't need to worry about Malcolm X because Malcolm has been neutralized, meaning, which tells me they killed him. So the only person that was left at that time that document was read that would be within that perfect range would have been Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was only 39 years old when he was assassinated. I just think that they wanted. I just think Bill Clinton. I guess I hate to blame it on old age, because I think Bill Clinton knows fucking better. I think he knew better when he said that. I'm looking here. Okay, Ed says, as the early 1960s, with all its positivity, changed into the late 1960s as Black militancy grew, people felt MLK didn't do enough to challenge that thought. Well, interesting enough, let me just say this. Dr. King was, his positions were starting to become more radical. He was actually starting to change. Shawn, you probably have read books about this and seen this, but Dr. King was talking about reparations before he died. One of the famous quotes that he made was that he actually feared that he integrated his people into what he called a burning house. He was talking about integration, whether it was successful or not. He started to see that the white man's ice on the other side wasn't as cold as he thought it would be. Now, that's not to say that the civil rights movement was wrong in doing what they did, but at the same time, they did not preserve the black businesses that they had. They didn't preserve the ownership of certain assets that they had. You look at HBCUs now, what you talked about, just alluding to, about going to these colleges and kids getting jobs to go work for somebody else. Keep in mind also that changed as well when you're talking about college sports and so forth, where the black college sports were the ones that were dominating. You know, the Grambling, the Southern universities, the Alcorn States, and so on, Texas Southern. I can name them all. You know, most of the black athletes were going from there. Of course, you have a lot of Hall of Famers that just come out of one college, and that was actually Grambling State. You know, the Buck Buchanans and Willie Davises and so forth. I could go on, and I'm wearing a Southern shirt, but yeah. But of course, in the 1970s, when they started to offer all of these kids scholarships and then the ability to play on national television, some of these primetime games, all of the black kids started to leave and go there. And that eventually also in the 80s, when they still had HBCUs that were playing on television, they were also playing in the 90s, and then around the 2000s, that's when it started to go off because the numbers dwindled. Because all of the athletes by that time are going to play for an SEC team like Alabama or LSU. So just alluding to that, because I think Ed has a good point. But I think it's just that mindset that the white ice is colder that we were talking about.
Yeah. And it's that mindset that really messes up a lot of black people. This white man's ice is colder, white man's products are better, and working for white people will be better for me. And that comes from a fear about security. And that's something I talked about in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. About one of the reasons why Black women have a lot of problems with black men is that they fear that the black man's economic system will not be secure. But the whole thing is that we could make our system secure if we supported each other. And that's one of the big problems black people have, is we don't support each other. And that's why our whole economic base fell apart. It fell
Yeah,
apart
Shawn?
because I'm here. It's putting a link in the chat, but a lot of our economics falls apart because we don't support each other. And again, the influences of white supremacy are deep on the black mind, and we want this white acceptance and white approval, and we want to be accepted by. The whole thing is that you have this codependency of being accepted by white people that makes it where we don't value being black or the contributions of black people or our own institutions. We always want to go for the white institution because we believe it's better. And this perception really has messed up a lot of things as related to our growth. I mean, we lost all of our black-owned businesses because black people, again, they wanted white acceptance above black empowerment. And that's the reason why we lost everything, is because we wanted to be accepted by white folks instead of saying, look, we need to accept ourselves, we need to value ourselves, and we need to value everything we've built and protect and preserve it. I mean, when Asians come here, they put Asians first, Hispanics put Hispanics first, and Arabs put Arabs first, but black people, we put ourselves last, and that's why we are the poorest people in the world, even though we were here before everybody else.
Most definitely. I just want to say to everyone, please donate to the channel. Cash App, GavinRichardEsq, or Google Pay, Gavin.G1@gmail.com, and support Shawn James, our guest. He is the author of The Man Crisis, as well as the John Haynes series and a few other books. And this is an Amazon link to one of the books that he has that he left for me the last time. So if you guys who are here that are new looking for something to read over the summer while you guys are still on break, before I guess you take the kids back to school or whatever, or you're looking for some downtime, I ask you to check out his books. You can also check out my book. I got to put it in the banner. It's coming up for August right now. Katrina, Eyes Have Not Seen, Ears Have Not Heard. That is also on Amazon.com. So Ed's been busy, man. He's been posting a bunch of stuff in the chat. Yes, a lot of our black politicians sold us out. What do y'all think about Ice Cube's contract with Black America? I do want to get, since you brought that up, I wasn't planning on talking about that, but I will get to that, I guess, in a minute, a little bit later. But I do know, I'll just say this before I forget, a brother by the name of T West of Afro Synergy News. He claims that he had actually, interesting enough, came up with that before Ice Cube. And I do believe Ice Cube copied it from him. That's not to say that Ice Cube is a bad guy, but uh, essentially some of the similarities in it were the same thing, which basically, Shawn, he laid out pinpoints that they want from America, as far as reparations, the treatment of homeless veterans, the treatment of African Americans in the community, and so forth. Those are some of the things that they talked about. I tell you what, we could talk about it right quick. I did want to mention this. I can mention that, but I do want to mention Ice Cube with the issue of the anti-Semitism thing that came up. The Daily Beast had recorded. They listed Minister Farrakhan. They had Nick. This was over the Nick Cannon fiasco with Nick Cannon, Minister Farrakhan, P. Diddy, and a few others. And then, of course, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar getting involved. I did a live stream about that, where he wrote an article about the rise of anti-Semitism by blacks, as well as Jamel Mammy Hill, who I don't like. But I guess dissecting it one at a time, if you could tell me what were your thoughts about Nick Cannon and the blowback and how they try to push the black community as being anti-Semitic.
Well, with Nick Cannon, it's like this. He just went out here and he made some statements that, while they were true, he didn't understand, again, the optics as related to himself. So he didn't understand that he had already made this deal with the people who he's calling the devil, and he's going to go out here and bite the hand that feeds him. So he's sitting here talking about these people, but those people were the ones giving him his daily bread. So that's what made him lose all credibility overall. He's sitting up there making these statements, but he's sitting there with a CBS Viacom contract, and he's going to make these statements and not expect any sort of blowback from the people who he gets his check from. So he made the same, as I see it, mistake that your I forget his name, this director, he's the guy who made The Birth of a Nation.
You're talking about I know who you're talking about. You're talking about he was in Beyond the Lights.
Yeah. But
Nate Parker.
Yeah, Nate
That's
Parker. They go to these what they call white supremacist corporations for their daily bread. They go there not understanding that once you sign these deals with these guys, you can't say anything about them, and they practically when you sign that contract, you have to do what they tell you to do. So when you go out here and you make a deal with these guys, they make a deal knowing the game is chess, not checkers. And they're already 7 steps ahead of you because, like in the case of Nate Parker, they already knew about his criminal case. They knew he had a white wife. And he went out here, he signed a distribution deal with Fox Searchlight. And then what happened was the same oligarchs then turned on him and then used that to destroy him long term because they knew his optics. Same way they knew that Nick Cannon's optics were going to make him look bad as well, because here he is sitting here talking about, oh, these guys are this, but you had no problem signing a contract with these guys. If you really were serious about what you were saying and you would practice what you preach, and you would have gone to a black-owned platform to create your intellectual property, and you would have gone to a black-owned institution to preserve your rights. You would have gone out here to black-owned platforms, and that would have been your way of showing how consistent you are with your words and your actions. But when I look at Nick Cannon's actions, it just shows that he's just really disingenuous. He sits there and says, oh, these people are this, but why are you dealing with them? And that's the critical question I ask for Nick Cannon. I mean, I look at his statements. Yes, they sound good, but your actions speak louder than your words. And
right.
The words after that are even more condemning, because after making this statement, you then go back to these same masters who control your contract, begging to go back to them. I mean, 1 minute you're speaking against them, then when they fire you, you want to go out here and start tap dancing for the same people who you say you're against. It shows me that you're not consistent in your words and your actions, but anybody who knows the entertainment business like I do know that this guy was never genuine because I look at who he signed his contract with. I look at his contract, I'm like, okay, you signed with these guys, why are you speaking against them? I mean,
right. I think the fact that he went back and just tucked his head between his legs, and then having that Rabbi Abraham Cooper on his show who disrespected the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and just espousing lies and so forth on that, I thought was even more interesting and perplexed, because a lot of people were shocked by, well, not I shouldn't say shocked, but I think the fact that it happened, so they were surprised that it happened so quickly. His apology, and remember he was going back at Viacom, CBS, talking about how they were trying to prevent black people from owning something because this is $1 billion franchise. And you would think that this guy, you would think that being that Nick Cannon had worked into law, had worked in that arena for such a long time in the entertainment business, that he would have been well aware about knowing what contracts to sign, having an attorney to look over that, and also the power of your trademark. Having something registered with the trademark copyright office. So I'm just surprised it was all like that. But I think it's also a good lesson because black people open up their eyes about who really runs Hollywood and how a lot of these artists have sold their souls.
Yeah, because Nick kind of made some major mistakes when he made those statements, because he signed those contracts, he agreed to these things, and he wants us to believe he's a victim, but he had a hand in his own demise. I mean, he just sat there and tried to play Mr. Pro-Black because he was emotional about George Floyd, not understanding the subtle politics transpiring around him and the deals he had made. So a lot of these black entertainers, you have to watch a lot of the things that they say, but more importantly, the things that they've already done, because the things they've already done show us whose side they're already on. And a lot of times they're not on the side of black people because they get their daily bread from these white supremacist institutions like Hollywood.
Most definitely. So, Shawn, we talk about a lot what's going on, but what's wrong. But I do want to ask, what is the solution when we talk about how we've lost our businesses, how we've lost, control of the black dollar and so forth? How do we get that back? How do we create a black network, a television network? Because it does cost money, obviously, to start up, to create a television network or even a streaming service. You have to have a plan. So black publications as well. And I'm going to get to that next, but what is the solution to that?
Well, the first solution is black people have to get their minds right. I mean, the biggest problem with black folks, even before the civil rights movement, is their frame of thinking and perception of self. The biggest problem we have is black self-hatred. And because black people don't like anything black or created by black people, it's hard for us to get out here and build anything black. Because this is what I run into with the SJS Direct Imprint, is I'm often running into resistance from mostly black people whenever I put up a cover for something like an ISIS series book, like ISIS, the Main Event. I get a lot of hate on these books because they don't like the fact that ISIS is light-skinned to them, and they go into that. And then there are
that's a big problem we have in our community, is colorism, too.
That light-skinned, dark-skinned stuff. And I get it on a lot of times when I put out other products out here. And the people, then when I also go out here and put out products, that I get a lot of resistance on them, because a lot of times black people don't like not only do they not like a black product, they don't like a black product created by a black man. Now, they don't have no problem with a black product created by a white man. Like, for example, with the whole Black Panther frenzy back in 2018, you had black people practically going crazy over this movie. And the main reason why they went crazy over the movie is because they had created a covert contract inside of their minds that they would get white validation and approval by liking this white creation and this white character, this black character who was created by a white man. So they have no problem supporting something created by a white man, but they will go out here and condemn something like a character like Isis, who was created by a black man. And they'll do that. And again, that goes back to your self-hatred, and it goes back to your self-hate issues, and it goes back to you not liking being black. And that all comes from growing up in this culture of white supremacy. And that's something that black people have to learn how to fight against, because you can't really build anything strong because people don't support things because their minds are messed up, and they have this perception that a white product is better than a black product. And because they have this perception, this is one of the reasons why it's hard for black businesses to build up and grow, because we don't put our products first. I mean, for example, Hispanics, when they tried to come up with this Goya scandal, trying to turn people against Goya because the CEO said he supported Donald Trump, Hispanics did not walk away from Goya because they understood Goya was a Hispanic-owned company, and Latinos put Latinos first. They didn't care about the Trump support. They understood, if we go against Goya, we're going against Latinos, and we're not going to go against our own. Same thing when they did Ugly Betty here in America a couple years ago. I ran into Hispanic people who said, look, I'm not watching that ABC show. I'm sticking with the Hispanic version because the Hispanic version is us, and it's made by us for us. So they're putting theirs first. They see theirs as better. And we have to come into that same type of notion if we want to rebuild our black-owned businesses and our black-owned products. We have to put value in our products. And when we go out here and do a reveal like I do for an ISIS series book like ISIS The Main Event, or a book like John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, or The Temptation of John Haynes, we need to see that passion and enthusiasm like we saw for Black Panther in 2018. I mean, it's sad that we went out here and made this movie the #1 movie in America in 2018, and practically gave Disney over $400 or $500 million. But many of these black-owned companies, like my own SJS Direct, many of these same people, they want to attack people like me, and they won't spend a single dime.
Wait, hold on a second, Shawn. Hold on a second. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, but we have to change the way we think about ourselves before we ask others to think of us. And we have to put our products first and support ourselves. That's the way we rebuild our community, is rebuilding our mind and getting our mind right. Because if you don't get your mind right, then you can't build anything, because people have to start thinking of valuing themselves first, putting themselves first. And that's how you get people to invest in themselves, because they see value in what another black person makes. We got to get out of this self-hatred, this jealousy, this envy, because a lot of black folks, we have this envy and hatred of another black person. We see another black person accomplishing something, and what first thing we want to do is attack that black person. That's something I try not to do. Whenever I see another black person like Chris Brown making Omega Black, or Raymond Leonard making Asian Solo, I go out here and support those brothers, because when you see another black man or a black woman making something that's improving your community, you have to put your money behind it, because that's how those people grow. And if we all help these brothers and sisters grow, we can have a black economy, and we can have black people employed by other black people.
Yes, most definitely. That's a very interesting point, man. It's a powerful thing. I think the main thing too is that especially in if we we hear as a talking point all the time, especially from some of these Democratic shills about how we need to fund the HBCUs, support HBCUs, and so forth, which I happen to be a supporter of. I do agree with that. But I think our HBCUs, there can be changes to their programs. I think they need to teach entrepreneurship skills. There were things that were missing uh, when I was coming up through college and high school where I didn't know too much about entrepreneurship that they didn't teach. Although my father had owned businesses and I kind of learned just from him. But I think it would be great if they could do classes like that. Even in the Jewish communities, I believe they have lessons that they teach in their schools where their communities stay tight knit as far as who gets, as far as the positions that they take, what they want to do, what businesses they own. They have that whole community. They have a neighborhood, and I know you. And I'm not trying to stereotype or anything, but I know in New York, I think you have like the Diamond District. Am I right?
Yeah.
Like we kind of saw in the movie Uncut Gems, where you saw Adam Sandler's character, who's Jewish, but that whole area was run by the Jewish community. Here in New Orleans East, where I'm at, the Vietnamese community, they have an entire block of homes, of businesses and shops where they stay within there. Even if they go out outside that community, they're still funneling money, back in there. And even when they have their businesses in other parts of New Orleans East, whether it be gas stations or nail salons, I'm pretty damn sure that they are giving that money also to their families overseas, and they're also teaching their young children how to take over for the family when they get older or they pass away. And that's something that I don't see happen too much with our black community. But yeah, that's absolutely great, Sean. And I think also we got to look into buying land and real estate. I think those classes need to be mandated as well
Yeah,
because that's actually the most important. That's very important.
it
Um,
is.
it is, yeah. But I guess speaking still with Ice Cube, and for those that are looking in the comments, those are actually that's what I was talking about, the African American national political agenda that T. West had shared with me a couple of years ago. You guys can check it out and look at it. I did want to ask you, what were your thoughts though on just quickly on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Well,
Uh,
I didn't pay any attention to that, so I really can't speak on it. So I didn't pay too much attention to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
okay, well, I guess I could just share the link with you later, but basically he was coming at Ice Cube, and Ice Cube called him a Judas. But I know
Well,
you
that's
don't like
kind of ironic coming from a guy who sold out his own community. So,
well,
I
Ice
mean,
Cube.
yeah, I mean, he promoted thug culture and gangster rap in the black community. But here he's talking about another guy. It's like, how can you say something about him when I can look at your legacy and your track record and the things you've done in the black community, the things you've done to the black community? You shouldn't be saying anything. It's kind of comes across as hypocritical to me.
Well, I think with Ice Cube, well, we can talk, yeah, about the rap lyrics and so forth, but I think where Ice Cube lies at, especially when Jake Tapper made some comments about Minister Farrakhan. Uh, I know that Ice Cube, I believe in the past, I don't think he's a member of the Nation of Islam anymore, but he was associated in some way, shape, or form. And I do believe that they have been picking on Minister Farrakhan with this. And you notice when they say all of these things, like your Rabbi Cooper or even Alan Dershowitz, they never say exactly what Farrakhan said. They're not willing even to debate with him. Donahue at least had Minister Farrakhan on several times, as well as Barbara Walters interviewing Minister Farrakhan. Mike Wallace interviewed Louis Farrakhan. And these are Jewish people, by the way. Mike Wallace, and I know Mike Wallace was Jewish. I'm not too sure about Barbara Walters. I believe she is. I could be wrong. I'm not sure about Donahue, but Donahue actually had controversial topics and people on his program, and he was much more respectful, I think, than like your Oprah Winfrey's or so forth, because Oprah refused to have I think, any real black men on her programs.
No, Donahue was a journalist, and he was trying to be objective. He often tried to put both sides of the argument on his show. I used to watch his show.
Yeah.
He tried to put both sides of the argument. He tried to let people come to their own conclusions on things. So that's why he would let guys like like Farrakhan, Khalid Muhammad. I used to watch them in the 90s.
Sister Soldier.
Yeah, he'd bring them all on so that people could draw their own conclusions and make their own observations.
Yeah. Yeah. But but most definitely. Well, that's the thing that I've looked at with Ice Cube. But Kareem certainly, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in recent past, Kareem even took a shot at Bill Cosby when all of that stuff went on with his trial. So Kareem has, he certainly has changed. But I guess when you get older, you start not to give a damn anymore. So, a lot of people think Kareem probably is going for the butter biscuits now.
Well, I look at both of them as butter biscuits, so I don't believe either of them. They're like
butter biscuits. Yeah, you don't like Ice Cube at all?
No, I mean, I've seen the damage his music has done to the black community. This guy's done damage, and he talks about Kareem Abdul. I'm like, neither one of you have any legs to stand on. Your arguing just doesn't mean anything to me because neither one of you have done anything for black people except bring more problems to them.
So that includes NWA as well,
Yeah, I see them all as a bunch of minstrels, and if it wasn't for them, a generation of black boys would not have gone into this thug culture. A generation of black boys would not be in the prison system. A generation of black boys would be in a way better place if it wasn't for those clowns.
Ed Deck said Barbara Walters is a Jew and one of the best news anchors. Yeah, but I do. I'm not gonna lie to you. I watch Friday all the time, practically when it comes on. And I'm a fan of his work as the movies he's done. As far as the whole hip hop rap music coming up, I was a little boy, all right, a kid when Ice Cube really broke out and started doing, stuff on his own. And as far as the movies that he made, so I kind of grew up with. But I wasn't allowed to. They didn't really play, like my parents really wouldn't let me play anything explicit like that. We didn't have that there.
Yeah, well, I grew up with rap since the day it started. So I come from the historical point of seeing hip hop from the start and seeing how positive it was and seeing that it was about black empowerment. I mean, if you want to talk about rap music, I mean, guys like Grandmaster Flash, Furious 5, Run DMC, even guys that I grew up with in the 80s, Kid and Play, Eric B. and Rakim, Big Daddy. It was always about black empowerment. It was always about black pride. And we controlled our image until Ice Cube came along. And Ice Cube and the NWA practically changed the entire narrative and allowed whites to come in and hijack the music, hijack the mission of the music. And they just twisted the music and it stopped being positive and it became negative. So I grew up with the foundations of the music. I know the history of the music. I know what the music is about. And when I see what Ice Cube and Dr. Dre and NWA did to hip hop and practically did to the black community, they practically took it from being in a place where it was a place of empowerment to turning it into the ghetto next generation. I mean, I see that damage the thug culture did to people because when we had us doing our own rap music, controlling our own image, we had black kids talking about going to college. We had black people talking about moving ahead. And this NWA was brought in by leftists to destroy the black image and to destroy black empowerment. So when I look at Ice Cube, I don't have any respect for him because I know what they used him for. They used him and his sellout friends to destroy the black community. And they used this music to destroy an entire generation of young black boys and girls and their frame of thinking.
So, okay. Well, so what do you think of Tupac and Biggie? You feel the same way?
Yeah, they're a bunch of clowns too. And Tupac is a big phony. I mean, he's just a phony. I mean, is one of these guys. He was just one of these nice guy beta males, and he created this gimmick image in order to try to sell rap records and play this bad boy image in order to sell the girls. But he's a big phony. He's a mama's boy. And Biggie, he's just another gimmick. All these guys were gimmicks meant to destroy young black boys and young black girls and get them off the road to college and get them back on the road to what white leftists want to see, which is the thug, the gangster, the criminal, because that's an image that makes them feel comfortable, because if black people are at the bottom, then they can feel comfortable about their place in the world of America. So they don't mind the Tupacs, the Biggies, the NWAs, because they don't represent competition. Meanwhile, when you have guys out here like, say, a Fresh Prince, or guys like the Afrocentric rappers like X-Clan, and they're talking about black empowerment, that's a threat to their base. So
Fresh Prince didn't talk about black empowerment.
I know he didn't talk about it, but he presented a positive image of black masculinity. And that image was of a clean-cut black man. Same thing with Kid and Play. They presented a clean-cut black man. Or you got guys like these other rappers who were presenting clean-cut black men, responsible black men. So what they wanted was the clowns, the guys talking about thugs, drinking 40s, smoking up. That made people feel comfortable. But when you start to see this other image of an intelligent black man who can challenge you, can present arguments, can articulate himself, can go into lyricism like a Big Daddy Kane or Rakim, that makes whites feel uncomfortable. They don't mind the Tupacs, the Biggies, the coon, because they're presenting repackaged coons, repackaged buffoons, repackaged black brutes, and that makes white folks feel comfortable about their place. They're like, oh, that makes me feel good. That's entertaining to me, because this other rap, he's talking about doings for black people. I mean, you put them in front of an X-Clan or a Tribe Called Quest, they start getting scared.
Well, my thing with that, though, did they really control their music, in the sense that when they do, like, NWA's manager was who? Jerry Heller. And Jerry Heller, I know, was a Jewish white guy who, I guess, going from the movie, he took a liking or interest to Eazy-E, and that's how he became, I guess, the manager for NWA and was pushing that. And Ice Cube, though, I will say this, though, being a businessman, and you may not like the lyrics, I think he was very smart in what he was doing. What he did by turning down, selling over his catalog and so forth, because he obviously knew the value of it. Master P, they did a story on him. There's a Chronicles on BT about how he got started in New Orleans. And originally he's from New Orleans, but he started in Richmond, but he, of course, moved back to New Orleans and started No Limit Records. And, I came up with all of that. Now, I never really listened to hip hop like talking about it. Now, when you talk about Pac, my thing with Pac, though, I listen to his stuff periodically, because when I can listen to him, even though he, as you say, put the thug life, and, he did songs like Hit 'Em Up and I Get Around and so forth, he could also do Brenda's Got a Baby and Dear Mama and things of that nature. So it was an outstanding lyricist. I get what you're saying, though, about the images that they portrayed. But again, I also look at it too. I'm thinking about this, when I look at, for instance, as we say, the Jerry Hellers who ran NWA. When I look at, I think it's MC Schmurder. I think he got in trouble recently. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But I remember a video, I think it was him, where he's dancing on top of the table in front of all of these white music executives. And it was Schmurder. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but he's in jail. Somebody's in jail based off one of their rap albums. Something happened. I think it's him. I could be wrong. I don't want to say the wrong information, but I just remember somebody knows who it is. But I do remember a rapper who was coming up popular, and that happened, and then all of a sudden he got in trouble with in jail. But you know, but that again goes to owning the record labels, going to own the publishing company, owning the plastic that's on top of that wraps around the CDs and so forth. I would like to see how much it costs to make that, what we can do to do that. And say what you want about a guy like a Master P. I do respect him as far as the business acumen that he did. Same thing I look at is with Ice Cube. I look at the business acumen that he has built. But of course, when you talk about the Fresh Prince, when I was looking at it and the positive images, there was a time where when I watched the black TV shows, where whether you're talking about Cosby or whether you're talking about Fresh Prince, they would have the HBCU sweatshirts on. Living Single used to do the same thing. Martin did the same thing. But then gradually we don't see that anymore. And of course, they put shows like Empire that's on, which I thought Empire was a hot mess.
Yeah. Empire was a disaster all the way around. And that's what happens when you have the wrong black people controlling the black image.
Yeah. And Lee Daniels, of course, created that. And Lee Daniels is doing the reboot of the Wonder Years. I am not anticipating looking at that. I know you already made a comment on it, Shawn, a video on that.
That's something I'm not watching because I know what he's going to do to it. And I know
Kevin Arnold's going to be sucking dick. I'm sorry.
Kevin, if we're lucky, that's the least of it. I mean, he's going to destroy the black father in that show. I know he's going to demonize the black father and make him out to be a bad guy. And I know he's going to really put some drug addiction in there. I know he's going to just fill it with stereotypes because Lee Daniels doesn't like black people. And he does not want to present a balanced image of the black family.
No, he does not. But again, that's who they put out. That's who they put out. So Edek said, Tupac is one of my heroes in music. I knew he was never really a thug. He was just trying to stay out of that homeless shelter. I remember Tupac got in trouble, I guess, on some gun charges because he shot at some cops that were beating up this black man. These undercover cops. He just shot at him randomly. I do know that his mom was obviously his mother, Afeni Shakur. She was part of the Black Panthers, and I know that they were targeted by the government. And a lot of people believe, even with his death and even Biggie's death, that had something to do with the government, FBI. I've been to Las Vegas, Shawn. I don't know if you've ever been there, but that area where he stayed, where he was coming from on the Strip, that's a busy area. So I can't see nobody not knowing anything about it. And I think one of his dancers actually, Kadif was the dancer who actually told the police everything. He ended up dying mysteriously from a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
Like a month after he said that. So it just makes you wonder.
Yeah, but that's that entertainment business, and you got to be careful about who you get involved with that business.
Most definitely.
Not something I wanted. It's like that entertainment business, especially the music business, is filled with a lot of dangerous characters, and the deals you make can probably not only cost you your life, it can cost you your soul.
Yeah. It was Bobby Shmurda. Okay, that's him. That was who I was talking about. Yeah. Was it Bobby Shmurda? Yeah. But he's actually did a plea deal. Yeah. So yeah, but I remember, that was him who was doing dancing on the table. Yeah, that was him. So so Shawn, what else were we going to talk about? And he was doing that at Epic Records, Michael Jackson's old album label that he was on. And we know what happened with him. Yeah. GK says the music industry, that industry is wicked.
I have to agree with that.
Yeah, it is. Even with Prince, the way he died was mysterious. And Prince was fighting Warner Brothers to get back control of his rights to his music. If you remember when he called himself the artist formerly known as Prince, that was during the time he was having that fight with the industry. I always thought he just didn't want to record it because he's just being arrogant, but there was a legal aspect to it and a moral aspect that he was willing to fight for.
Yeah, because they will try to take everything from you.
Most definitely. We don't have artists like that anymore. So I kind of see what your point is. Those are the people that, they are pushing out. Let's see. So let's see. I'm trying to think of what else we talked about. Because we talked about practically guidance and voting and so forth. I did want to talk to you about this. This was important. Of course, they're talking two things right quick. Shawn, I
Yeah.
appreciate you being here with me again, buddy. It was been reported. This was on July 30th, 2020. I'm actually sharing this with you guys right now. Thank y'all for being here too. Please donate to the channel. Cash App, Gavin Richard, Esquire. You can also do Google Pay at gavin.grich1@gmail.com. And also, please go to Amazon.com, buy the book Katrina, Eyes Have Not Seen, Ears Have Not Heard. Also, check out Shawn James's John Haynes series, The Man Crisis. I'm still in the middle of reading that. Pretty good book, and a couple of other things. It was reported right here, Shawn, that we talked about this before about black media. Ebony and Jet magazines are set for a bankruptcy battle. So these are the two historical black magazines that are filing for bankruptcy. The publisher of two storied publications which have chronicled black culture in America for more than 75 years is facing a liquidation demand from Parkview Capital Credit, a Houston-based firm that claims it is owed $11.9 million. The filing for involuntary Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which Parkview claims is actually part of a plan to salvage the Ebony and Jet brands and revive them on the web, comes just weeks after publisher Ebony Media's former CEO, Willard Jackson, was fired and removed from the board. Those that remember have been on my channel. I commented on how Ebony and Essence magazine, for that matter, how the media have they changed drastically, how they have basically been the voice of leftist control rather than for the people, which is what their original founders like Reginald Lewis and John Johnson, who ran Ebony magazine, and Mr. Lewis, who ran Essence, respectively, did. So, Shawn, just your thoughts on hearing about the bankruptcy process that was going on.
Well, Ebony and Jet have been in trouble for a good 4 or 5 years now. I've reported on this. And this is due to the fact that John H. Johnson really didn't have a good vision for his legacy. Now, he left his legacy in the hands of his daughter, and his daughter really didn't have a comprehensive plan for setting a course for the magazine as related to the 21st century. Now, I knew back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was buying Ebony as a teenager, that the magazine was in trouble due to the way they were writing their articles, the content they were producing. They were still trying to give us these pictures of the black elite. They were giving us these really dumbed down articles that were on a, as I called it, third grade reading level when I was in high school. And Ebony and Jet have been in serious trouble for, I say, a good 2 decades as related to content, because new magazines started coming up. Magazines like Emerge, Black Enterprise, and Legacy Magazine. Many other magazines were coming out, and Ebony and Jet just were not in a place where they were able to adapt in terms of content. And right into the late 2010s is when they started really having serious trouble, because after John H. Johnson passed and there was nobody there to be a captain over the ship, the daughter was supposed to be a captain, but she had taken her life for granted, and she really did not understand what her father had given to her. So she just really didn't know how to continue maintaining a course or setting a course or having a vision for a course. I mean, as a publishing professional, I know how to set a vision for the 21st century, because you have to create content that relates to people today. You want to create content that shows Black people, things that are going to empower them, things that are going to educate them on certain issues. And instead of doing that, Johnson's daughter and the people in charge of Ebony decided to go in with far leftist, feminists, and these so-called social justice warriors. And they started producing this
LGBT.
yeah, and they started producing this misandristic, man-hating, anti-black man content. And the core audience they were going for, black women, most black women don't really subscribe to this misandristic, anti-black man because most black women are heterosexual. They love black men. They don't like seeing this propaganda being presented to them. So they had no incentive to go out here and buy Ebony or Essence. I mean, I recently read an article that was so-called op-ed about Bill Cosby. And that article really put a sour taste in my mouth as related to Essence. And Ebony and Jet have, again, been in trouble for some time now. And it's all due to the fact that they don't have a good editor-in-chief to design content. They don't have a vision for the mission of the magazine. And they don't know how to create content for the 21st century. I mean, as a blog guy's been blogging for over a decade, I could have come up with a dozen articles that really would have gotten people buying the magazine, stuff that would have focused on black men's issues, which is something that probably would have gotten them a core audience because black men do like to read, but you have to talk about the things they want to deal with. And they're not talking about the things black women want to deal with because all they were talking about was weave, no good black men, and hair and nails. And that's not substance. People wanted substance when they buy a magazine, but they weren't getting that from Ebony and Jet. And they've been in the death throes for a good, I say, 2-3 years now.
Well, what you say about the editors in chief, they not only fired the editor in chief at Ebony, but also the CEO who owns Essence now, which is Sundial Products. I forget the owner's name. He was also forced to step down, I believe, at that time from Essence. So they have been in trouble. They don't have, and this was all recently. They don't have all of their ducks lined up in a row, and most certainly, what I think is that they don't have not only a vision for the future, but I think that they've just been operating on fumes for now. So it doesn't surprise me when I see things like this that they file for bankruptcy because remember, a few years ago, Chase Bank actually bought Ebony magazine. They own a part of it. I think they own the back catalog as well. The other thing I would point out is that Ebony, hold on, I'm just trying to, is that with Essence magazine, when we look at them, they were supposed to stand for something. They showed elegance and of black, of black wealth and black beauty. Those were things that we looked up to. Like when you read Jet magazine while you're at the grocery store waiting to check out, in the, when you're in the checkout line, you waited to see the beauty of the week, the Jet beauty of the week, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, some of the women were ugly. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, I'm getting ready to pay homage to the Jet Beauty of the Week in the next ISIS book in 2021. I'm getting ready to put a Beauty of the Week type pinup of ISIS, and that type of content is what people want. But then Ebony and Jet got woke, and they didn't want to give us as that kind of content. Same thing with Essence. They got woke. They wanted to go on this anti-black man tirade, and again, they thought black women were with that. But the black women who are with that don't spend money on magazines.
Yeah, and just to clarify what you said about the article with Bill Cosby, I saw that. I actually did a comment on it in my YouTube channel talking about that. Bill Cosby, oddly enough, if I'm not mistaken, he had owned, I believe, or was involved in the management of Essence magazine at some point. I do know that Reginald Lewis, who was the former co-owner of Essence magazine, he and Bill Cosby are actually close friends. I believe he is from Philadelphia, as I'm not mistaken, as Bill Cosby. So it was upsetting to see the very magazine that in some way was that Bill Cosby and his wife, for that matter, had appeared on dozens of times. The same thing with Ebony magazine. Let's not forget when the allegations started, Sean. Ebony magazine had the picture of the Huxtables with the shattered glass image, like a shattered picture frame. And it said Cliff versus Bill.
Yeah.
Obviously should have showed the duality of who Bill Cosby is on screen and off screen. And the thing with Bill Cosby is and I hate to just keep going, I always talk about him. I hate bringing it up, but it is what it is is that, the man single-handedly uh, helped solidify, or at least challenge white America into how it viewed black people. The first time that they saw a black doctor or a black attorney was from watching the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
Even though you had Thurgood Marshall, who was who was not chief justice, excuse me, associate justice on the Supreme Court, you still had young white kids who didn't know anything about that because, let's face it, the cameras are not on the Supreme Court all the time. And, that was the first time that they saw a black doctor. That's the first time they saw a black family that was actually well educated. They were smart. They were family orientated. They did all great things, that normal families did. You know, uh, those are things that are missing. And unfortunately, Essence Magazine, Ebony Magazine, they have been perpetuating these stereotypes. So I see this, I think 2020 is the year of karma.
Yeah,
Of course, I hate, yeah, what you're saying?
I believe it is karma because Bill Cosby was the one who helped Essence Magazine, and here they are betraying the very man who actually helped try to keep the black woman's image positive, and you went after him, and now you're about to go under. So
Ebony too. Ebony too.
They all went against a man who actually did a lot for black people. I mean, we wouldn't even have black movies if it wasn't for him helping Melvin Van Peebles. A lot of the stuff we have, we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for him.
Right.
And they're sitting there denouncing him. And what do they think they're going to get? You think these white people are going to give you anything? No, they're going to give you black men in dresses and other clown stuff. And they don't understand that people like Bill Cosby were there helping you, but then you want to stab them in the back. And that's just really sad because the problem is we don't understand the big concept with Ebony and Jet is we didn't understand legacy. We don't understand the importance of legacy. And the whole thing is the baby boomer generation of guys like John H. Johnson. Well, he wasn't a baby boomer. He was before them. But his daughter was a baby boomer. She didn't understand the concept of legacy and why legacy is important and why we need to protect and preserve legacy. Because what your parents make is to be passed down to you because that's your wealth, that's your inheritance. And you have to take this very seriously. I mean, when your parents give you something, you have to value it. It's like I wrote in my novel, A Recipe for Success. The Cassandra Lee character, she values what her father and her mother built in the bakery in Brooklyn. She wants to build on that and preserve it and protect it. And her parents, who were boomers, they were just ready to sell it off, but she wanted to protect it and preserve it. And a lot of people out here, they don't understand the importance of preserving and protecting what you have, because if you don't care about your institutions, how can you expect somebody else to? And when you sell it off to whites and non-blacks, they're not going to care about it, and they're just going to see it as another, property that they own, and it's not even a valued property, and they're going to treat it like garbage because you treated it like garbage.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I wanted to talk about this, and we could just be very brief. I was trying to do it before. I was trying to tie it in, I guess, with the John Lewis thing we talked about earlier, because they tried to make it all about voting. Earlier today, there was a tweet that Donald Trump, President Trump, talked about with regards to voting in 2020 and delaying the election. I wanted to just share that article with you and just get your thoughts briefly, if you thought about it, what your take on it was. I know you have stated previously that you're not really interested in this election that's coming up, and a lot of people are not. But I do want to know just what your opinion is on what he has says. Of course, he's rolled back on it, saying, I don't want to delay. Trump rolls back on delaying election, but
Trump
not on the
can
election.
say whatever he wants, but he has to follow the United States Constitution. And the United States Constitution says that Congress controls what election day is. That's a check and a balance on the system. So he has no real say over what the election is. I mean, he already sees himself allegedly tanking in the polls. So instead of him complaining about the election, what he needs to do is focus on a platform. But the problem is that Trump played into the hands of the leftists as related to the chess game. He let his emotions lead him to participate in a really bad decision with the whole COVID thing. And it makes him appear to be mismanaged, especially with a lot of this slanted media. And he's really in a bind, but these emotional statements he makes on social media, they are hurting him. If I were him, I would stay off social media for a while. I would just come up with a focused platform, because it seems like he's really jumbled and directionless. When I look at him, first he's doing COVID briefings, and then he's on Twitter, there's no consistency with his message, no consistency with his approach to things, and everything is just going really arbitrarily based on his feelings at the moment, and that's not really good, consistent leadership. So if I were Trump, instead of me arguing with people online or trying to get on Twitter talking about trying to delay an election, which is already, he's not going to get any support from his party, and he's not going to get any support from everybody out here, because we know that constitutionally he can't do anything. I would be either focusing on my reelection strategy or my exit strategy, because the way he's approaching everything, it just shows me he's not really a good leader under pressure, and he's just falling apart right in front of us and just showing us why we shouldn't hire him. But then he's not presenting any arguments to what he would do in another 4 years.
He's not, but also the other aspect of it is the flip side is Joe Biden presenting anything?
He's not presenting anything either, but the whole thing is nobody's asking him to present anything. And the whole thing is, if he proposed that to Joe Biden, he probably could actually gain some support, but he's so in his feelings, he cannot really sit down and propose, okay, what would you do different? And that's where he would have him, because there's nothing anybody can really, as I see it, do anything about this COVID. It's out there. And I would rather just see a Sweden type approach, because this approach we've done right now has been a complete failure. I mean, Sweden has managed to have the same results similarly without destroying their entire economy and their infrastructure. And maybe we need to just change our approach, because what we're doing isn't working. And you have Americans who want to go and do the exact same thing and expect a different result, even though it's called insanity. And I believe by a lot of these woke people and a lot of these leftists are going to be in for a rude awakening when they find out that Biden isn't what he says he is, and he's presenting as he's supporting them, but eventually he's going to show them his true colors, and that's when they're going to really realize they made a deal with the devil.
Biden is a front, basically, because at 78 years old, it looks like he even has onset dementia. His vice president, who they say will be a female, there's rumors it would be Kamala Harris, but I doubt that. I've heard about Elizabeth Warren, but basically, you also got to
Harris. He's done.
But you got to consider. Yeah, but my thing is, I would not be surprised if Donald Trump wins the presidency again, as disastrous as his first term has been. Just given the fact that there are people who do not want to see a female become vice president or president. And I think that was the deal with Hillary Clinton. There was also the deal with John McCain with Sarah Palin. They were not strong candidates.
And the thing with Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro, the whole thing is that white women don't like white women. And that's something that the Democrats don't understand, is that white women get jealous of other white women. And when they see a white female being elevated to a high position or a position of power, they look to tear down that white female.
Yeah. Another thing, just pointing this out briefly too, you got to consider this, Shawn, is that Joe Biden likely would not even finish his first term. Let's say he gets sick, and whoever that vice president is, they're going to have to take over. And that vice president, I believe, is going to be I'm just going to say it, is going to be LGBTQ. Whoever who he picks, certainly they'll be pro-LGBTQ, pro-feminist. And I've often thought, I was talking to some people, that it may be a lesbian, if he did pick the woman, it would be a lesbian. They mentioned this, they would have the quote first gay president, which is something that the left has been pushing for. I think it would be a disaster if you had that. I'm just speaking real as politics. If you had that in the Middle East, in those areas, Saudi Arabia or Yemen, wherever the president may go, they certainly would not support anything like that. And I think even when Barack Obama was president, in Jamaica, he tried to present them with Jamaica, as well as other countries, he tried to force that onto them, and they actually kicked him out. Told them we didn't want that here. So I see that happening.
They would lose a lot of face in the international community because that's frowned on, and that alphabet agenda is something that people in the other countries do not support. So I think wouldn't be smart. But I also look at the failure of female leadership in Seattle, and a female president would participate in a lot of the behaviors I talked about in the man crisis that single mothers participate in that whenever these women are pressed, what happens is they shut down as part of their coping skills, they deny problems as part of their coping skills, or they just tune out as part of their coping skills. That's what females do because they're not made to process logically. They run on emotion. And this is what I see a female president doing. They're going to wind up becoming overwhelmed, like these single mothers wind up being overwhelmed. They're going to wind up participating in the coping mechanisms that single moms participate in either denying that things happen, like the mayor of Seattle did during the Chaz situation, where she just denied and talked about how it's going to be a summer of love. These people are tearing up this part of the city, and she's denying it. And then she's going out here tuning things out, like the murders that were going on. And then she's just shutting down, like her police commissioner. They just shut down. And this is a dangerous thing to have as somebody representing an entire country, having somebody who just does not have those coping skills because they're not wired to do that, because they're emotional, and because they run on emotion, they make bad short-term decisions that affect people long-term, similar to what your Donald Trump is doing right now, because that's why I call Donald Trump the first black female president, because he, like many black females, runs on emotion, makes very irrational and impulsive decisions, is not very consistent in his actions, and he falls apart under pressure. I mean, we'll get the exact same thing if we had a black female vice president, and if Joe Biden can't survive, we're going to get the same thing as related to it, and even worse, she'll have no real vision because Joe Biden really doesn't have any real vision. And for a president, you really want to have somebody there who has a vision for the country, who can set a series of goals for the country and have a plan to delegate so that those goals can be implemented. We have not really had a really good leader in the United States, I say, for the last 30 years or so. I mean, we have not had anybody to set a vision for the country because people take the country for granted and they think that you can just coast on things, but you need somebody there who can set that course, then put towards goalposts and set hard goalposts, and then delegate towards getting towards those goals. And that's where we don't have that. We have a bunch of people who, like with this whole COVID thing, they set a goal, like flatten the curve. Then once we meet the goalpost, they want to move the goalpost. And that's beta male behavior, beta and female behavior, because they are scared and insecure about meeting a goal, and they're afraid that things aren't going right. They don't have any confidence. So they just keep moving the goalpost, and that makes it where people get frustrated because there's no consistency, there's no direction, and there's no real sense of accomplishment. And that just shows the weakness of the leadership. And I'm noticing we've got this culture of a weakness of leadership, and this culture of a weakness of leadership is why our country is in such bad shape, because we have a lot of people who want to be managers and manage a situation, but we don't have any leaders who want to set a direction, set a series of goals, and really work towards moving past those goals. It's like I said in my last live stream last week, a lot of people, they don't want to follow through and finish because they fear if they finish, they won't be able to do anything else. And they fear that afraid of not being able to take on a next set of goals. They're just so afraid of taking a risk that they don't do anything. So these are people that they're in a bad place because they're just not in a place where they're ready for leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a very good point. I think we've been missing leaders in this country for a long time, but I also think too is that Trump is a reflection of reality. The president obviously reflects the United States, and maybe this is a reflection on how bad the country is right now. And
Yeah.
I believe that, George Carlin once said that he doesn't get involved in politics because he always thinks of it as, why the politician sucks? He says it's because the public sucks.
Yeah.
That was his way of looking at that.
Politician is a reflection of we the people, and the problem is we the people want things easy. We want things fast. That's why people wanted to make America great again. Not understanding if you want to make something great, you're going to have to put in some work. You're going to have to go through some pain. I know this from life experience, and you're going to have to take a lot of losses in order to win. And Americans, they wanted the easy. That's why they went with Trump, and that's what they don't understand is that you want greatness, but then you don't want to apply yourself. Same thing with a lot of the beta males out here. They don't want to apply themselves. They want to have this great life, but then they don't want to put the work in. And Americans, they want easy. And that's our culture. Is we want it easy, but anything worth having, you're going to have to work hard for it, and you're going to have to fight for it.
All right. Before we get out of here, Shawn, with very powerful words. I just want to clarify, EDEC is in the building. EDEC had said this earlier about the Prince thing. I think Prince died of natural causes. Even if Prince had all of his masters, how was he going to market his music? He didn't have the millions to exploit his music. What I think what it is, but remember this, EDEC, Prince has an entire library of unreleased music that they say it's enough to last for over 100 years. And that was in his vault. And my understanding, too, is that the banks that is handling, I think, his succession, they actually broke open that vault and they've been using that because the state, I think all of the people that were supposedly his siblings and so forth, I don't think they got any money from the succession of Prince's estate. So that's a very interesting thing. And GK said that, yep, you're right about that. Shaking my head, we're screwed either way. EDEC had also said, yes, indeed, Bill Cosby was definitely a pioneer. Yes, he was. He still is. And another thing he did too, he also helped create the Black Stuntmen's Association in Hollywood. At the time I Spy was being done, they had white actors in blackface that were pretending to be Bill Cosby, and he absolutely objected to that. And he helped create the Black Stuntmen's Association and get black stunt workers hired on various projects, film projects. So he certainly was a trailblazer and still certainly was a pioneer and still is. Shawn, you want to plug in your books before we get out of here, man?
Yeah, I just left links in the chat to the SJS Direct 2020 books. ISIS, the main event, is now available in paperback and Kindle format, and it'll be coming to Smashwords soon. And John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, is now available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. It's also available on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And I have a new copy of The Temptation of John Haynes with a new cover by Mike Williams that's now available. And you can pick this one up on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. You can also find it on Smashwords and Google Play. And we got a major milestone for the Man Crisis. The Man Crisis has now had its 400th sale. And now the book is on to 400 sales. I want to try to get it to 450 or 500 by the end of the year. So if you could pick up The Man Crisis on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats, I really would appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for having me on the show.
Thank you, man, for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I know it's been an hour and 38 minutes that we've been talking, bro, but it's just it's been going real good, and it's good to just have you on. People value your opinion, and I'm happy that you were able to come on and talk about current events because we need to always evaluate what's going on in our country and our world because people look to us as the new black media. People, we're tired of looking at, I'll just say it, the MSNBCs and CNNs and the Fox News, which clearly are biased in terms of how they do media reporting. People get their news more now on the internet than they did before on television. Even reading newspapers now is kind of outdated. But Shawn, thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
All right.
And thank you all for tuning in to channel GBoo2786. Gavin Richard presents. I ask that you please subscribe to this channel. Those that are new, I think EDEC is new to the channel. I ask, brother, please subscribe, like this live stream, also share it. The other thing too, YouTube has been doing things with analytics, scrubbing my subscribers and others. Eventually, maybe time, Shawn, I think we have our own streaming platform.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing that, and something where people can make money from it immediately, because this is not as easy as it looks to come here and talk with you guys. So that's why we encourage you, if you please donate to the channel at the links below. Also subscribe to my Patreon, GBoo2786, because for videos that are not going to be uploaded to YouTube, as well as other topics. Guys, that has been it. Please be safe out there. Please keep your third eye open. Watch everything that's going on. And once again, we will be back. This video in another live stream on the next video. I'm Gavin Richard with Gavin Richard Presents. Peace out. Love you. All right, Shawn.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
buddy.
All right.